Hello and welcome. In the pantheon of divine beings that watch over mortal existence, one figure stands apart from all others, not because of her power, though it rivals the mightiest gods, and not because of her influence, though souls themselves bend to her will. No, she stands apart because her very nature challenges everything you thought you knew about divinity itself. The Raven Queen, known by many names across many worlds, exists in a space between mortal ambition and godly transcendence. And the question of what she truly is has sparked debates among scholars, clerics, and wizards for generations. Is she a goddess who ascended through ritual and sacrifice? Or is she something else entirely, a soul weaver who manipulates the very fabric of fate without claiming the mantle of true divinity? Tonight, you'll journey through the shadows of her history, examine the evidence from multiple worlds and editions of reality, and perhaps come to understand why this question matters more than you ever imagined. Before we descend into these histories, please consider subscribing to the channel. It is the surest way to find your path back to our library of lore when you wake. Section 1: The Mortal Who Defied Death. You feel it in the cold air around you. That subtle chill that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with proximity to something vast and unknowable. The Raven Queen's presence in the multiverse is like that undeniable, impossible to ignore, yet frustratingly difficult to define. She sits upon a throne in the Shadowfell, that dark mirror of the material world, and from there she watches. She collects. She judges. She weaves. But before she was any of these things, before the ravens came to herald her passage, and before the Shadar-kai pledged their very souls to her service, she was mortal. This is where your understanding must begin. In that almost forgotten time when the being who would become the Raven Queen was simply a woman, albeit an extraordinarily powerful and ambitious woman. Her mortal identity remains one of the greatest mysteries in all the planes of existence. The specifics have been lost, and different worlds tell different tales of how she achieved her transformation. What you need to understand is that her path to power varied depending on which reality you examine, which cosmology shaped her ascension. The stories diverge, yet certain truths remain constant. She was once mortal, she sought divinity, and she paid a terrible price to claim it. In the cosmology known as the Fourth Edition, her story unfolds as a tale of ambition and betrayal. She began as a powerful sorceress queen, ruling over a kingdom whose name has been lost to time. Her destiny became entangled with Nerul, the god who claimed dominion over death itself. Nerul was ancient beyond reckoning, a being who had murdered his predecessor to claim the throne of death, and whose cruelty knew no bounds. He sought to become king of all gods, gathering power from the souls of the dead to fuel his ambitions. Neril took the mortal sorceress as his queen, naming her Nera. He trained her in the arts of drawing power from souls, teaching her the very techniques that made him mighty. He showed her how death itself could be wielded as a weapon, how the essence of those who had passed could be gathered and shaped to divine purposes. This proved a catastrophic error. Nera learned everything Neril had to teach, and understood that the power he wielded could be hers. In an uprising that shook the plains themselves, she moved against her husband and teacher. She absorbed the power of every tormented soul in Neril's domain, drawing on the very techniques he had taught her. And through this, she destroyed him, not defeated, not imprisoned, but truly unmade. With Neril's destruction, she claimed his mantle and his power. Her mortal form died in the process, but her spirit survived, elevated by the divine essence she had consumed. Yet the other gods watched this power grab with alarm. Fearing she might prove as dangerous as Neril himself, they moved to limit her authority. The gods stripped her of the broader title of God of the Dead, granting her only the title and power of God of Death, authority over the transition itself, but not over final destinations or judgments. Stripped of her mortal name, transformed by her violent ascension, she became simply the Raven Queen. She withdrew to the Shadowfell, and there established her domain away from divine politics. But in the cosmology known as the Fifth Edition, the story unfolds quite differently, suggesting that different versions of the Raven Queen exist in different realities, or that the truth of her origins has been obscured by manipulation of memory itself. In this telling, she was an elven queen, a powerful sorceress who ruled over followers who called themselves Shadar-kai. She harbored ambitions of restoration. Some texts suggest she sought to reach Arvindor, the realm of the elven gods, while others claim she hoped to reunify the fractured elven pantheon itself. To achieve this impossible goal, she devised a ritual of unprecedented scope. Her followers, the Shadar-kai, believed in her vision completely. They offered their souls willingly to fuel the ritual. Their magic and life essence woven into the working that would transform their queen into something more than mortal. The ritual took place during a moment of cosmic significance, when the barriers between planes grew thin. Everything proceeded according to her design until betrayal struck. A cabal of 13 wizards attempted to siphon the ritual's power for themselves. They had hidden among her followers, waiting for the moment when the energies would be too immense to contain. The queen lashed out at the treacherous wizards, cursing them utterly and transforming them into creatures called the Nagpa, condemned to exist forever as bird-like horrors who could gain knowledge only from the bones of dead civilizations. But her counterattack came too late to save the ritual. The working had been disrupted at its most critical juncture. the energies tore through reality itself, plummeting her and her followers into the Shadowfell. Her mortal body died instantly, unable to contain the warring forces within it. Her followers, the Shadar-kai who had willingly given their souls, were dragged into the Shadowfell with her, transformed by the very plane that now imprisoned them. The Queen's spirit survived, elevated partway to divinity by the ritual before its disruption. But she had been transformed into something strange and terrible. Her form dissolved into disconnected sensory perceptions. Fragments of identity scattered across the Shadowfell. She was dying, fading, unable to maintain coherent existence without the full divine power the completed ritual would have granted. To avoid disappearing entirely, she drew upon the only resource available, the memories of the Shadowfell itself. She pulled these memories around herself like a cloak, using them to sustain her fragmenting identity, to give herself form and substance when her own essence threatened to dissipate. From the union of her mortal spirit, her partial divinity, and the dark memories of the Shadowfell, the Raven Queen emerged. But she was forever changed, forever incomplete. Her mortal name was lost, erased by the ritual's disruption, forgotten by her transformed followers, perhaps deliberately hidden by elven gods who considered her actions treason. Both Corellin and Lolt, working in rare concert, erased all memory of her mortal existence from the minds of elves across the multiverse. She became a being defined by absence, by loss, by the memories of others rather than her own. In the world of Exandria, yet another variation appears. Here she is the matron of ravens, a mortal woman who destroyed the original god of death during an apogee solstice. Taking the fallen god's place in the Pantheon, she moved to the Shadowfell and established the frozen realm of Leatherna as her domain. These origin stories, the ambitious queen who overthrew Nerul, the elven sorceress whose ritual went catastrophically wrong, and the mortal who struck during a cosmically significant moment, present fundamentally different paths to power. Yet all arrive at similar destinations. In every telling, she loses her name, her mortal identity, her original form. In all versions, she becomes something that exists between mortal and divine. In each, she establishes herself in the Shadowfell and begins collecting souls and memories with obsessive compulsion. What remains consistent is the price she paid. Whether through violent overthrow or disrupted ritual, she achieved power by sacrificing everything she had been. Her name gone, her memories shattered or lost, her mortal form destroyed, her emotional depth diminished to match the Shadowfell's melancholy. Even her physical appearance transformed into something alien, a pale figure draped in darkness, surrounded by ravens that serve as extensions of her will. What you must understand about the Raven Queen's origins regardless of which version reflects the truth of any given reality, is that she was not born divine. She was not chosen by existing gods to join their ranks. She took divinity through force, through ritual, through sacrifice and ambition that burned away everything she had been to become something more. This origin story, in all its variations, raises the central question: does the method of achieving divinity matter in determining whether one is truly a god? If the Raven Queen wields power equal to that of gods, commands domains like gods, is worshipped like gods, and shapes reality like gods, does it matter that she was not always divine? Or does her unique origin place her in a category distinct from traditional deities, something neither purely mortal nor purely divine, but suspended between those states? The answer will unfold as you continue this journey through her nature, her relationships with other divine beings, and the evidence that supports or challenges her status as a true deity. But for now, you have seen her beginning, or rather, the multiple contradictory beginnings attributed to her. You have understood the crucible in which she was forged, and glimpsed the terrible price she paid to escape mortality's limitations. She is the queen who seized divinity through means that vary with the telling, who sacrificed her very identity to transcend death itself, and who now sits in eternal vigil over the souls of countless worlds. Section 2: Dominion over Death and Fate. The transition from mortal sorceress to cosmic power brought with it domains that shaped the very fabric of existence. When the Raven Queen claimed power over death, whether through overthrowing Nerul or through her disrupted ritual, she did not simply assume control unchanged. Her unique nature, her experience of mortality and loss, gave her a perspective on these cosmic forces that no previous death deity had possessed. Death became her primary domain, though the nature of this dominion varies between cosmologies. In the 4th edition telling, the other gods stripped her of the title of God of the Dead, giving her instead only the title and power of God of Death. This distinction matters profoundly. She holds authority over the transition itself, over the moment when life ends and the soul departs, but not over final destinations or judgments that follow. This limitation, imposed by jealous gods who feared her power, would shape everything about how she exercises her authority. In the 5th edition cosmology, her role as psychopomp, a guide for souls making the transition, emerges even more clearly. She safeguards the soul's passage to its final destination, ensuring that no soul is lost in the gray expanse of the Shadowfell, or trapped by forces that would deny them proper rest. Winter falls under her dominion as well, though she gained this portfolio later in the 4th edition telling, when the goddess Kala attacked the other gods in anger over the changing seasons. The Raven Queen was called upon to bring Kala into death. She agreed, but only if given the portfolio of Winter as payment. Winter thus became hers, not through natural affinity, but through calculated negotiation. Fate represents her third domain, again acquired through strategic action in 4th edition. When Lolt attacked Corellin during her transformation into the Spider Queen, the Raven Queen lent her sorrow-sworn troops to Corellin's defense. As reward, Corellin allowed her to assume Lolt's former mantle as Goddess of Fate. In 5th edition sources, Fate appears as part of her natural portfolio, tied to her role in death, every death being Destiny's conclusion. The Fortress of Memories, her seat of power in the Shadowfell, defies conventional understanding of space and architecture. In some texts, it is called Leatherna, described as a fortress of black ice within a frozen forest through which souls must pass. In 4th edition sources, it is called Fate's Palace. Regardless of the name, it serves the same fundamental purpose, a place where the Raven Queen holds court and stores her vast collection of memories. The fortress exists somewhere in the Shadowfell, that dark reflection of the material world where emotion is muted and color drains to gray. Inside, corridors stretch beyond what exterior dimensions suggest possible, lined with alcoves containing memories made manifest. Some appear as frozen moments in time, tableaus of lives lived and lost. Others take the form of trinkets and mementos brought back by her Shadar-kai servants. Still others exist as pure sensation, emotional echoes that wash over visitors without warning. At the heart of this architecture sits her throne room. According to 4th edition sources, she appears most often as a tall woman with skin as white as bleached bone and midnight black hair. Though her eyes betray her inhuman nature, they lack whites, pupils, or irises, being instead a blackness filled with pinpoints of light like stars. She often wears a blank porcelain mask. However, 5th edition sources present something more unsettling. Here, texts state that the Raven Queen does not possess or manifest a physical form at all. Instead, she appears as disconnected sensory perceptions, symbols, images, impressions that observers struggle to reconcile into coherent form. This radical difference suggests that either different versions of her exist in different cosmologies, or that her form remains unstable, shifting based on the strength of her power in any given reality. Ravens perch throughout the fortress, and through their eyes she observes countless worlds where mortals live and die. These birds serve as psychopomps, guides for souls making the transition from life to death. When a mortal dies, particularly one who worships the Raven Queen, a raven appears to guide their soul through the initial confusion of death toward their proper destination. Each raven carries within it a fragment of her consciousness, seeing what she sees and acting with her authority. The Shadar-kai trust these cryptic birds completely, following them across plains when the Raven Queen desires something retrieved. Ravens scout for tragedies the Queen wishes to witness, and when such events unfold, the Shadar-kai collect mementos and bring them back to add to her vast collection. The Shadar-kai themselves represent her most devoted servants and perhaps her greatest victims. These elves, originally her followers who pledged their souls to fuel her ascension, ritual, found themselves trapped in the Shadowfell when her transformation went catastrophically wrong. The plane changed them, muting their emotional vibrancy, paling their skin to gray and white, darkening their hair to black. They became shadow-touched, able to teleport short distances through darkness, resistant to necrotic energy, and near truly immortal. This immortality comes with a binding curse. Whenever a Shadar-kai dies, the Raven Queen draws their soul back to the Shadowfell and resurrects them in a new body. Thus they view death as temporary, caring little for whatever shell they currently inhabit. They cannot escape her service even through death, bound forever to carry out her commands. This raises troubling questions. Is this control typical of gods over devoted followers? Or does it represent something darker, more like enslavement than worship? The Shadar-kai dwell in communities outside the fortress of memories itself, normally too terrified to willingly enter. They understand that their queen, mad with grief and loss, represents a danger even to those who serve her. When she desires something retrieved, she sends ravens as guides, and the Shadar-kai follow without question. The Sorrow-sworn present another aspect of her power, though their exact nature depends on which cosmology you examine. In 4th edition, they serve her directly demons who delve deep into minds and torment victims. The Raven Queen lent these troops to Corellin during his battle with Lolt, demonstrating that she commands them as an army. In 5th edition, the Sorrow-sworn transform into something different. They are no longer her servants, but rather embodiments of negative emotions given horrifying form. The lonely drain the will to live. The wretched spread anguish. The angry manifest as pure rage. The lost represent confusion. The hungry embody need that can never be satisfied. These creatures emerge naturally from the Shadowfell's nature rather than being commanded by the Raven Queen, though they gravitate toward her fortress as the epicenter of that plane's sorrowful power. The whole focus of her existence centers on collecting memories and strong emotions, typically associated with loss and tragedy. She dispatches Shadar-kai to wait for significant emotional events to unfold. Then they collect mementos, trinkets, memories from the living, and sometimes souls of the dead, and bring them back to her. This obsession stems from her own loss, her fragmented identity that can no longer recall its original form or name. Her collection extends to souls themselves. She claims the souls of all Shadar-kai, which always return to her after death. Beyond this, every soul that passes through death potentially encounters her or her ravens, having their names and significant memories collected and stored. This vast repository prevents souls from being lost during transition, provides her with profound knowledge of mortal nature, and satisfies her compulsive need to preserve what would otherwise be forgotten. Her approach to undeath demonstrates how her philosophy differs from traditional death deities. Many gods associated with death either despise undeath as abomination or embrace it as a tool. The Raven Queen occupies middle ground. She views most undeath as tragedy, souls trapped in states they were never meant to endure. She works to free such souls when possible, granting them the final death they have been denied. This brings her into direct conflict with Orcus, the demon prince who seeks to transform all existence into undeath. Their war has raged across ages, fought through countless proxies and occasional direct confrontations. Orcus controls many lands within the Shadowfell, with settlements and temples erected in his name. The Shadar-kai and Sorrowsworn hunt his followers relentlessly, while Orcus offers bounties to kill Shadar-kai wherever they can be found. Vecna represents another enemy, the one who attacks more subtly. The Lick God craves her knowledge and her domain over souls, seeking to overthrow her and rule the Shadowfell from her fortress of memories. Rather than direct assault, he establishes small footholds throughout the Shadowfell, quietly recruiting members to his cause and waiting until his forces grow strong enough to strike. Her intervention in mortal affairs follows patterns that both support and undermine claims to her godhood. Like other deities, she responds to prayers from worshippers, granting divine magic to clerics who serve her faithfully. Yet her answers come less frequently than those of most gods, tending toward cryptic guidance rather than direct intervention. This restraint might indicate wisdom and respect for mortal free will, or it could suggest limitations on her power, an inability to affect the material plane as directly as traditional gods manage. Section 3. Among the gods' allies and enemies. The cosmic hierarchy of divinity operates according to rules that predate most mortal civilizations. Gods arrange themselves in pantheons, forming alliances and rivalries that shape the fate of worlds. The Raven Queen's place in this hierarchy proves remarkably difficult to pin down, shifting between different cosmologies in ways that traditional gods do not. In the 4th edition cosmology, the Dawn War Pantheon, the Raven Queen stands as a fully recognized deity without qualification. She holds the rank of lesser deity, wielding dominion over death, fate, and winter as an established member of the Pantheon. other gods of that era accept her as one of their own. She participates in divine conflicts, forms alliances, and opposes those whose goals conflict with hers. No god of that time suggests she is somehow less than fully divine. This recognition matters significantly when examining her status. If the gods themselves recognize someone as a god, if she can negotiate with them as an equal and claim domains through divine bargaining, this suggests she has achieved legitimate godhood regardless of her unconventional origins. Her relationship with Coraline demonstrates this acceptance. When Lolt attacked Coraline during her transformation into the Spider Queen, the Raven Queen lent her sorrow-sworn troops to Coraline's defense. As reward, Coraline allowed her to assume Lolt's former mantle as goddess of fate. This transaction between deities, this exchange of military aid for portfolio and domain, operates according to standard divine politics. Coraline treats the Raven Queen as a legitimate power capable of holding divine portfolios and making binding agreements. Similarly, when the goddess Kala attacked the other gods in anger over the changing seasons, the Raven Queen was called upon to bring Kala into death. She agreed, but demanded the portfolio of winter as payment. The other gods accepted her terms. Again, this demonstrates recognition of her status as a peer capable of negotiating with established deities and claiming new domains through conquest. Yet, when the cosmology shifted to the 5th edition arrangement, the Raven Queen's status became profoundly ambiguous. She is described in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes as an entity who failed to reach godhood, whose ritual went catastrophically wrong, leaving her as something powerful but incomplete. The text explicitly states she did not achieve true divinity despite her immense power. This creates immediate complications. She still grants divine magic to clerics, suggesting godhood. She still commands domains and shapes reality in ways that require divine authority. Yet the source material itself declares her something less than a true deity, a powerful entity whose transformation remained incomplete. In the Forgotten Realms, Kelemver serves as the established god of the dead, having ascended through more traditional means during the time of troubles. His authority over death operates differently than the Raven Queen's. Kelemver judges souls according to their deeds in life, maintaining the fugue plane where the deceased wait for their final destinations. He oversees the entire process, from transition through judgment to final placement. The Raven Queen, when she appears in the Forgotten Realms at all, functions more as an interloper, a being from the world of Nerath who has some influence in the Shadowfell, but does not hold the same comprehensive authority that Kelemver wields. She is described as an entity from elsewhere, whose power extends into this reality without fully integrating into its divine structure. Scholars debate whether they would come into conflict over overlapping domains. Kelemver oversees the dead souls after death, their judgment, and their final destinations. The Raven Queen focuses on death itself, the transition, the passage, the moment when life ends. This distinction might allow them to coexist without direct confrontation, each handling different aspects of mortality's conclusion. However, tensions could emerge around specific practices. Kelemver's teachings oppose most forms of resurrection, viewing them as disruptions to the natural order. The Shadar-kai, bound to the Raven Queen, return to life repeatedly through her power, their souls resurrected in new bodies whenever they die. This practice directly contradicts Kelemver's philosophy, potentially bringing the two powers into conflict. The world of Exandria presents a third variation. Here, the Raven Queen, called the Matron of Ravens, or Matron of Death, stands as an established deity without controversy. She destroyed the previous god of death during the Age of Arcanum, taking his place in the Pantheon during an apogee solstice when such challenges became possible. The other prime deities accepted her ascension, and she now sits among them as a recognized member of the divine hierarchy. In Exandria, she maintains cordial relationships with gods whose portfolios complement hers, and opposes the betrayer gods whose domains conflict with her philosophy of orderly transition from life to death. She has temples, clerics, paladins, and warlocks who serve her cause. By every functional measure, she operates as a goddess equivalent to any other in the Exandrian Pantheon. This acceptance in Exandria, while remaining ambiguous in the Forgotten Realms, suggests that the Raven Queen's divine status depends heavily on the specific cosmological framework that contains her. In realities structured to accommodate unconventional paths to divinity, where gods can be challenged and replaced during moments of cosmic significance, she achieves full godhood. In settings with more rigid divine hierarchies and established death deities, she exists as a powerful entity whose claim to divinity remains disputed. Her absence from certain major campaign settings proves equally instructive. In Kryn, the world of dragonlance, the structure of divine power operates through three major factions aligned with good, evil, and neutrality. The Raven Queen does not appear in Kryn because that cosmology leaves no space for her unconventional nature. She does not fit cleanly into the tripartite alignment system, and her focus on transition rather than judgment does not match how Kryn structures death-related divinity. In Eberron, where divine power operates through fundamentally different mechanisms, and gods might not exist as conscious entities at all, the Raven Queen becomes something else entirely. Keith Baker, creator of Eberron, has explored how she might manifest in that setting, perhaps as a powerful immortal trapped by her own fascination with memory. Sitting in her fortress, amidst all the memories of the world, sending agents to gather more. This version would be less a goddess and more an entity of immense power who grants abilities to those who serve her, functioning as a patron rather than a deity in the traditional sense. These variations demonstrate that the Raven Queen represents a different category of being than universal gods like Bahamut or Tiamat, who appear in nearly every cosmology with consistent fundamental natures. She is setting specific, her exact nature and power level varying based on the theological structures of whatever reality she inhabits. Her eternal war with Orcus provides the clearest example of her operating at divine level power, regardless of her official status. Orcus, the demon prince of undeath, seeks to transform all existence into undeath. This goal directly opposes everything the Raven Queen represents. Their conflict has raged across ages, fought through countless proxies and occasional direct confrontations. Orcus controls many lands within the Shadowfell itself, establishing settlements and temples in the Raven Queen's own domain. He offers bounties for dead Shadar-kai and hires mercenaries to hunt her servants. This demonstrates not only her ability to oppose a being of unquestioned demon lord status, but also reveals a concerning limitation. Orcus has successfully established permanent footholds within her own plane, suggesting her control over the Shadowfell is not absolute in the way a true god's control over their divine realm should be. True gods exercise complete authority within their divine realms. The fact that Orcus can maintain presence in the Shadowfell, despite the Raven Queen's enmity, suggests her control operates through different mechanisms than traditional divine sovereignty. Vecna represents another enemy who attacks more subtly. The Lich god craves her knowledge and domain over souls, seeking to overthrow her and rule the Shadowfell from her fortress of memories. His strategy suggests he views her as vulnerable in ways that true gods are not, as someone who can be displaced through patient infiltration, rather than requiring the massive assault necessary to challenge an established deity in their own realm. When mortal spellcasters attempt to interact with the Raven Queen through magic, they report inconsistent results compared to contacting other deities. Commune spells sometimes reach her, sometimes encounter what feels like an empty space. This inconsistency differs from how divine beings typically interact with mortal magic, suggesting either that she deliberately obscures herself, or that her nature makes conventional divine contact difficult. Her clerics receive divine magic reliably, but they describe the experience differently than clerics of other gods report. Where followers of gods like Peller speak of warmth and connection, clerics of the Raven Queen describe coldness, distance, and the sensation of drawing power from a vast reservoir rather than receiving it as a gift. This difference might stem purely from her domains of death and winter, or it might reflect a fundamental difference in how she relates to her worshippers. The philosophical question asks, what makes a god a god? Is it raw power? The Raven Queen possesses power that rivals most deities. Is it the ability to grant divine magic? She does this reliably. Is it recognition by other gods? She has received this in 4th edition. Is it worship by mortals? She has temples and devoted followers. Yet doubts persist in ways they do not for gods like Peller or even Kelimver, who also ascended from mortality. In 4th edition, she achieved integration into the Pantheon as a recognized member. In 5th edition, particularly in the Forgotten Realms, she remains outside, powerful enough to affect divine matters, but not fully accepted as divine herself. In Exandria, she achieved godhood through direct action during a cosmically significant moment. Her status thus depends less on her inherent nature and more on the flexibility of whatever cosmological framework contains her. Section 4. The Weaver of Souls and Destiny. The title Soul Weaver emerges from observations of how the Raven Queen operates rather than from any formal designation. It describes a being who manipulates the fundamental threads of existence in ways that transcend conventional divine authority, while remaining bound by limitations that true gods rarely face. To understand what this means, you must first grasp how traditional deities interact with fate and destiny. Gods who claim dominion over fate typically perceive destiny as something already written, a tapestry they can observe and occasionally influence. Their power lies in knowledge and subtle guidance, steering mortals toward outcomes that serve cosmic balance or divine will. The Raven Queen operates differently, at least in some cosmologies. In the world of Exandria, she demonstrates an ability that goes beyond mere observation. When the cleric Levital channeled her power to help the Hollow One named Laudna, the Raven Queen made Laudna's thread of fate physically visible, a silvery tether connecting her to the warlock Imogen. The goddess then connected this thread to the rest of their companions, transforming its color to gold and literally reweaving their destinies together. This was not metaphor, but actual manipulation of fate's physical substance. She warned those under her watch to be careful with bending destiny, revealing that certain individuals possess the ability to manipulate fate's threads themselves. She rebuked those who would try to live indefinitely through undeath, but acknowledged that an individual might not always be meant to die in one moment, that their destiny could extend beyond a single death. This suggests a complex understanding of fate as something flexible rather than fixed. As threads, that can be manipulated, strengthened, weakened, or rewoven entirely. Whether all versions of the Raven Queen across different cosmologies possess this ability remains unclear. But in Exandria, at least, she demonstrates power over fate that goes far beyond simple observation. The Shadar-kai embody the most dramatic example of her thread-weaving power. These elves entered into a binding that fundamentally rewrote their fates, tying them to the Raven Queen in ways that transcend normal worship. In the 5th edition telling, they were her original followers who gave their souls to fuel her ascension ritual. When that ritual failed and dragged them all into the Shadowfell, they became permanently bound to her. This binding manifests most clearly in their immortality. Whenever a Shadar-kai dies, the Raven Queen draws their soul back to the Shadowfell and resurrects them in a new body. They cannot escape through death. Their fates have been literally woven into hers, making them extensions of her, whether they desire it or not. They view death as merely temporary, caring little for whatever physical form they currently inhabit. This forced resurrection differs fundamentally from how traditional gods interact with their followers. Gods might resurrect faithful servants occasionally as a gift or reward. The Shadar-kai have no choice in the matter. Their souls belong to the Raven Queen completely, returning to her regardless of their desires. This level of control suggests either a unique form of divine authority or something more troubling, binding, that resembles enslavement more than worship. The Shadar-kai also develop abilities that stem from their transformed nature. They can teleport short distances through shadows, not by casting spells, but as an inherent property of their being. They resist necrotic energy, age incredibly slowly once their transformation completes, and possess an otherworldly quality that marks them as no longer fully mortal. However, this transformation comes with a binding requirement that reveals limitations on the Raven Queen's power. Shadar-kai must periodically return to the Shadowfell to reinforce their connection to her. If they remain in the material plane too long, they begin to fade, not aging, but becoming increasingly insubstantial, their forms growing translucent. Only by returning to the Shadowfell and renewing their bond can they restore their solidity. This need for periodic return suggests that the Raven Queen's power operates through direct connection, rather than the distant blessing typical of gods. A cleric of Pellar receives their deity's power equally well, whether near or far from their god's divine realm. The Shadar-kai's dependence on proximity to the Shadowfell indicates that the Raven Queen sustains them through threads of power that weaken with distance and time, requiring regular reinforcement. In the 5th edition cosmology, her own existence depends on a similar mechanism. The texts state explicitly that when her transformation failed and her mortal body died. Her form dissolved into disconnected sensory perceptions. To avoid disappearing entirely, she used the last vestiges of her personal power to pull dead memories from the Shadowfell around her, creating a cloak of identities that sustained her when her own identity had been erased. This reveals something crucial about her nature in that cosmology. She exists not as a coherent self, but as a collection of memories harvested from the Shadowfell, assembled into something that approximates consciousness and identity. Both Coralyn and Lolt had erased all memory of her existence from the minds of elves, removing even her name from reality itself. Without memories of her own to anchor her identity, she drew upon the memories of others, using them as raw material to construct a being where one should no longer exist. This would explain her obsessive collection of memories and mementos. She is not simply preserving the memories of the dead out of compassion. She is sustaining her own existence through them. Every memory collected, every name preserved, every significant emotional moment harvested becomes part of the foundation that keeps her from dissipating. Her vast repository might serve as the actual substance from which her consciousness is constructed. If this interpretation holds true, it suggests she is not a god in the traditional sense, but rather a construct, an entity built from memories, and held together by will and the unique conditions of the Shadowfell. This would place her in a category entirely separate from conventional divinity. The masks she wears might represent different clusters of memories, different identities pulled from the Shadowfell's reservoir of the dead. When she wears one mask, she might be accessing primarily memories of sorrow and loss. Another mask might draw on memories of acceptance and peace. Each one could represent a different aspect, not because she is a multifaceted deity, but because she is literally composed of multiple identities that never fully integrated into a single coherent self. The physical appearance issue demonstrates this fragmentation clearly. In 4th edition sources, she appears as a tall woman with bone-white skin and midnight black hair, her inhuman eyes filled with points of light like stars. She wears masks, but possesses a definable form. In 5th edition sources, the texts state flatly that the Raven Queen does not possess or manifest a physical form. Instead, she appears as disconnected sensory perceptions, symbols, images, impressions that observers struggle to reconcile. This radical difference could indicate that in 4th edition, where she achieved full godhood by overthrowing Nerul, she maintained coherent form and identity. In 5th edition, where her ritual failed and her identity shattered, she never achieved the wholeness necessary for stable physical manifestation. Her limitations become more understandable in this context. She cannot prevent death because her domain extends only to the transition itself. to the moment of passage and the preservation of what passes through. In 4th edition, this limitation was imposed by jealous gods who stripped her of broader authority. In 5th edition, this might represent the inherent boundaries of a being whose existence depends on death's occurrence. Without death, she would have no memories to harvest, no souls passing through to sustain her nature. She cannot restore her own lost memories, despite being able to preserve and restore the memories of others. This paradox makes sense if her identity was not simply forgotten, but actually erased through divine curse. Coralin and Lolt, working together, removed her from memory completely, creating a wound in reality where her true name and identity should exist. She can work with memories that still exist, but she cannot recover what has been utterly unmade. She cannot exist fully outside the Shadowfell for extended periods. Her primary being remains anchored to that plane because, in the 5th edition telling, the Shadowfell itself provides the memories that sustain her existence. Leaving it would mean dissolution. In 4th edition, this limitation might stem from the ritual she used to overthrow Neril, which bound her to the Shadowfell as the foundation of her power. Her ability to manipulate fate, while impressive, shows boundaries that gods claiming similar domains do not face. She can perceive multiple possible futures and influence which ones become reality. But she cannot simply decree a specific outcome. Her power operates through careful manipulation, strengthening certain threads while weakening others, but ultimately leaving final choices to the beings involved. When examining her powers as a whole, a pattern emerges. She excels at working with what already exists, souls that have died, memories that have formed, fates that have begun to play out. She can preserve these elements with unmatched skill. She can manipulate and redirect them, weaving them into new patterns, but creating something entirely from nothing, establishing absolute outcomes, or fundamentally altering the rules by which reality operates, all appear beyond her reach. True gods in 4th edition possess divine ranks that measure their power hierarchically. The Raven Queen held the rank of lesser deity, real divinity, but at the lower end. In 5th edition, no such clear ranking exists. She is simply described as a powerful entity, one who grants divine magic, but whose exact status remains deliberately ambiguous. She is the soul weaver, the being who manipulates destiny and death through direct engagement with the substance of existence rather than distant decree. She represents what happens when mortal ambition achieves cosmic power through unconventional means, powerful yet limited, divine yet fragmented, eternal yet dependent on external sustenance for continued existence. Section 5. Deity or something more. The weight of evidence accumulated across cosmologies theological texts, and direct observation of her actions creates a portrait that refuses to resolve into simple clarity. You have walked through her origins, whether through overthrowing Nerul in 4th edition, or through a disrupted ritual in 5th edition. You have explored her domains and the unique ways she exercises authority over death, fate, and memory. You have examined her relationships with other divine beings and the wars she wages against Orcus and Vecna. You have witnessed how she weaves souls and destiny in ways that transcend conventional divine power, yet show limitations that true gods rarely display. Now comes the moment to synthesize this knowledge and attempt an answer to the question that has guided this exploration. Is the Raven Queen truly a deity, or does she represent something else entirely? The answer depends entirely on which cosmology you examine. In the 4th edition cosmology, the Dawn War Pantheon of the points of light setting, the Raven Queen stands unambiguously as a deity. She holds the formal rank of lesser deity, placing her firmly within the divine hierarchy, even if at its lower tiers. She overthrew Nerul, the previous god of death, through violent uprising and claimed his mantle. The other gods, though alarmed by this demonstration that divine power could be seized through force, accepted her ascension. They limited her authority, stripping her of the broader title of God of the Dead, and granting her only the title and power of God of Death. But they recognized her as one of their own. In this cosmology, she negotiates with other gods as an equal. She bargains for the portfolio of winter by agreeing to kill Kala. She receives the portfolio of fate from Corellin as reward for lending her sorrow-sworn troops during his battle with Lold. These transactions operate according to standard divine politics, with the Raven Queen participating as a legitimate member of the Pantheon capable of holding multiple domains and making binding agreements with other deities. Her clerics in 4th edition receive divine magic without question or limitation. Her temples function as proper houses of worship. Her influence extends across multiple worlds within that cosmological framework. By every measure that 4th edition uses to define divinity, she qualifies completely. The debate about her status simply does not exist in that edition. She is a goddess, albeit one, whose origins and methods mark her as unconventional. But in the 5th edition cosmology, particularly as described in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, the situation becomes radically different. Here, the text explicitly states that she failed to reach godhood. Her ascension ritual was disrupted at the crucial moment by treacherous wizards who attempted to siphon its power for themselves. Instead of elevating her to divinity, the ritual tore her and her followers from wherever they had been and plummeted them into the Shadowfell. Her mortal body died instantly, her form dissolved into disconnected sensory perceptions. To avoid disappearing entirely, she used the last vestiges of her power to pull dead memories from the Shadowfell around her, creating a cloak of identities that sustained her when her own identity had been erased by the curses of Coralyn and Lolt. She became something powerful but incomplete, a being constructed from the memories of the dead rather than a coherent divine consciousness, dependent on continued harvesting of memories to maintain existence. This version of the Raven Queen did not achieve true godhood. She wields immense power, grants what appears to be divine magic to her followers, and commands domains that rival those of actual deities. But the source material itself declares her transformation incomplete. She exists as what some have called a god-adjacent entity, something that mimics divinity without fully achieving it, operating at divine power levels while remaining fundamentally different from true gods in her nature and limitations. However, this interpretation from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes comes with an important caveat. That book has been officially designated as legacy content by the publishers, with warnings that its contents do not reflect the latest lore. This suggests that even within 5th edition, her status remains in flux, subject to revision as the cosmology continues to develop. In the world of Exandria, as portrayed through the adventures chronicled in Critical Role, the Raven Queen achieved full godhood without ambiguity. During the Age of Arcanum, a mortal woman destroyed the previous god of death through a ritual called the Ritual of Seeding, performed during an apogee solstice when divine power could be challenged. She took his place in the Pantheon, and the other gods accepted her ascension. All knowledge and memory of the previous death god was scrubbed from existence, even being ripped from the memories of the gods themselves. She now rules from Leatherna, her frozen realm within the Shadowfell, acknowledged as the matron of ravens or matron of death. She has temples, devoted followers, and exercises divine authority comparable to any other member of the Exandrian Pantheon. In this cosmology, the question of her divine status does not arise. She is unequivocally a goddess, having successfully completed what in other cosmologies she failed to achieve. These variations reveal something profound about the nature of divinity itself within the multiverse. Godhood is not an absolute state, but rather something shaped by the cosmological framework that contains it. In settings where divine power can be seized through force or ritual, where gods can be challenged and replaced during moments of cosmic significance, the Raven Queen achieves full divinity. In settings with more rigid structures and established death deities, she exists as a powerful entity whose claim to godhood remains disputed or explicitly denied. For her worshippers, these theological debates hold less practical significance. whether scholars categorize her as true deity or powerful entity. Her clerics receive abilities that function identically to divine magic. Her followers experience answered prayers, witness miracles performed in her name, and find meaning in their devotion. The Shadar-kai serve her with absolute loyalty born of binding rather than choice, resurrected endlessly regardless of her technical divine status. The ravens guide souls through death's transition, whether their mistress qualifies as goddess or merely god-adjacent entity. Yet implications exist beyond the personal experience of faith. If the Raven Queen in her 4th edition incarnation represents proof that divinity can be seized through force, that a mortal can kill a god and take his place, then she serves as both inspiration and warning. Other ambitious mortals might study her example, seeking similar transformation through their own forbidden rituals. This possibility threatens the stability of divine hierarchy itself, suggesting that the pantheons are more vulnerable than they appear. If instead she represents incomplete transformation, as 5th edition sources suggest, then she stands as a cautionary tale. Her fragmented identity, her dependence on harvested memories to sustain existence, her emotional distance, and the melancholy that permeates everything she touches. All these could be the price of forcing apotheosis through unnatural means. She gained power beyond mortal comprehension, but lost essential parts of herself in the process, becoming something that exists in perpetual state of incompleteness. The truth likely encompasses both interpretations simultaneously. In cosmologies where the conditions support her full ascension, where divine power operates according to rules that allow for forceful seizure, where death deity roles need filling, where the pantheon structure accommodates unconventional origins, she achieves genuine godhood. In settings with different structures, she achieves only partial transformation, becoming something powerful, yet fundamentally different from true divinity. She is what happens when mortal ambition meets cosmic power, through means the universe may or may not have prepared for. She is proof that the categories we use to organize reality, mortal, divine, living, dead, possess more flexibility than traditional theology admits. She is the soul weaver, whose manipulation of fate and death transcends some divine capabilities, while falling short in others. She is the Raven Queen, unique in all the cosmos, defying categorization, because no single category exists that can contain all versions of her across all cosmologies. The question of whether she is truly a deity thus resolves into a more complex understanding. She is a deity in 4th edition and Exandria, where she successfully completed her transformation. She is a god-adjacent entity in 5th edition, where her transformation failed, but granted her power sufficient to mimic divinity. She is absent from settings whose cosmological structures leave no space for her unconventional nature. Her status changes with context, shaped by the rules of whatever reality she inhabits. She sits on her throne of shadow and memory, surrounded by ravens and the echoes of countless lives, weaving souls and destiny with practiced skill born of ages beyond counting. Whether you call her goddess or entity or something without proper name, she continues her work, eternal guardian of death's threshold, keeper of memories that would otherwise be lost, the queen who claimed power at the price of everything she once was, forever changed, forever watching, forever incomplete yet enduring.